everybody. Welcome to this workshop, which we have titled Supporting Developmental Stuckness, Utilising the EPR Developmental Paradigm. So we'd like to give you some context to start off with, to say that the EPR model was developed by Dr. Sue Jennings around about 2011. And it emerged from her work in her observations when she was looking at babies and infants and pregnant women, really thinking about how that connection was through the EPR stages. And from that, she actually developed her core ideas and the core values of the framework. And what she felt was that it was a developmental paradigm that charts the progression of dramatic play. And that's really, really important in terms of the context of this framework. So developmental play from birth to 7 years of age. And that's where all of these stages fit in. And that's what we're going to be thinking about as we go along today.
And just to add to that, useful to think about that Sue Jennings is a drama therapist. And so this is born out of, as you've said, dramatic play. And it's very, there's a lot of focus on the body within this, isn't it?
Yes.
And utilization of the body and story and roles and those sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess if we sort of look back on the ideas of this, we could say that really she started to think about sensory kind of psychotherapy really in those early days. We know that it's developed in this here and now in terms of those theoretical frameworks we have. But certainly this was, I would suggest, sort of early stages of using the creative ways of working to look at children in a particular way in the context of play therapy, which is what we're going to have a look at as well as we go along. Okay, you might ask yourself then, what is EPR? So together, embodiment, projection, and role, they form the foundation for play and learning and social interaction, all through dramatic play. It's value-free and an integrative framework. What does that mean? It means that it doesn't matter what therapeutic modality you've trained in. You can take elements of this if you choose, and you can apply it to that modality. It doesn't lean into any particular psychological theory. She's encouraging you just to see this and apply it to all of your therapeutic ways of working. What she says, though, is that there are parallels to developmental processes. And when we think about those developmental processes, we're thinking about physical, cognitive, emotional, and social processes. And certainly that's something that we can see with our clients, the children that we work with. And as we've said, what it does do, the EPR framework, is it charts the dramatic development of children through the play. So what we think is very important, as we do with all of these workshops, is we're giving a thought around the therapeutic perspective. And for us as therapists, what we want to consider is that EPR is not just a developmental phase model. What it does do, it actually shows us how the child will enter the world of imagination and of symbol. And that is, as we know, Tara, it's very important, isn't it, for our work when we're thinking about the children we work with. How imaginative are they? How creative are they? How do they use the symbols? So this is incredibly important for our work. Again, we're thinking about the world of dramatic play and drama. So how is the child in terms of their drama around the play, their storytelling, their narrative, which is what Tara hinted at initially. And for us, we think it's wonderful because it provides us a therapeutic framework for understanding where the child might be stuck uh, developmentally in terms of those areas we've just spoken about, and how we as therapists we can meet that stage. Because what's important about these stages is that we can see them as building blocks. And the building blocks are sequential. And if we hold on to that idea, then we can see where maybe the therapeutic focus needs to be initially in order for the child to go through those building blocks to get them to a stage where developmentally they meet their chronological age. So we can integrate it absolutely in terms of our work. And as I said earlier on, it can be integrated into any psychological model or therapeutic practice. And Tara, we use it quite a bit, don't we, in our practice? I think both as therapeutic clinicians, but also in supervision, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, it's so interesting because I'm thinking about how so many conversations we've had with regards to regression in the therapeutic space. It's a theme that comes up in a lot of our trainings because working creatively with children and young people is an invitation to regress. I mean, and we move along with them.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just a really helpful model, to have alongside other thinking. And, we're going to be looking at neurological development and how this fits in there. But it just provides us with an additional piece for us to have a curiosity about where a child might be stuck, what their needs might be, what might have happened, and how we can help them, as you said, therapeutically to move on. So this is, I think particularly for play and creative therapists, I mean, it was designed by drama therapists who said that this is a really useful model.
Mm.
Um,
What I
because
like about it as well is it's very gentle, isn't it?
it's very gentle, and it fits with both non-directive and directive, with structured and unstructured. It really is, as she said, it can be integrated into any way of working. Because yes, it is gentle. And
Yeah.
it also it makes sense. It's common sense, actually, when you start to sort of dig into it. It's not complicated. It's clever, but it's not complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
So, we're just very, very briefly going to touch on how Sue Jennings' thoughts about attachment. And she considers that there are three safe circles of attachment. And the first circle of attachment starts in utero. So she talks about how this is the kind of contain and hold stage of attachment, where in the womb, during pregnancy, as we've said here, the mother is forming this dramatic relationship with their unborn child. There is a dance that happens. We know biologically that there is a back and forth, there is a shared experience in terms of what happens to both the developing fetus and the mother's body. But that first circle of attachment, as she calls it, is hugely important because it's, as she puts it, the contain and hold stage. The attachment process is happening by how well, if you like, and how safely that developing unborn child is happening in the environment of the womb and in relationship with the mother. So whether the mother is talking to their unborn child, is aware of their unborn child, has this back and forth relationship, even though the child hasn't been born into the world yet.
Mhm.
The second circle of attachment is characterized by containment and rhythmic playing and synchronicity. So here we're thinking about in the mother's arms. We're thinking about, again, that sort of it's maintenance of borders. I've got you, I hold you, you are safe in my arms. I keep you safely when you're sleeping. At that, highly vulnerable stage of a newborn baby when in terms of environmental safety, obviously psychological and emotional safety, but they really are utterly reliant on the borders of the caregiver in order to sort of keep them safe. But within that, from those early moments, the play starts happening. Then that synchronicity between, baby and caregiver, mother, we're going to say mother for the purposes of this, but we understand that, it could be father and others. Um, so you've got the containment, but you're starting to play, you're starting to wonder, you're starting to have this back and forth connection with a baby in arms. And so this is where it starts to become very much part of the embodiment stage of the model, which Karen's going to talk about in a minute. And then the third circle of attachment, she characterizes as being, communicating safety. So this is much more about the psychological process between the mother and baby. We could think about mentalization, we can think about reflective functioning. There are lots of it, this is where it sort of all comes together. But this is really where the infant, the baby, is held in the mother's awareness. So there is a psychological awareness of the baby. And so that process of thinking for, curiosity about that baby's experience as their own individual human starts to develop. So yes, so we just thought that it would be helpful to introduce you to how Sue Jennings, how she presents her thoughts around attachment. And when you listen to her talking about this, the circle is really symbolic. And again, that makes me think of other models that you've trained in, Karen. So, circle of security, but she talks about how, particularly for drama therapists, but actually for creative therapists, we use the circle. It is a containing, mandalas, so much work that we do is actually held in the safety of the circle, which is why Sue Jennings uses that language, because it is about that containment, that awareness, that safety, that structure, that boundary, which, as we'll learn, sort of is a really core part of EPR moving forward.
And I was thinking that um, even if you didn't know about EPR, the circle of attachment is a really important concept to think about, because I was really thinking about when you were saying the first circle, Tara, about how some unborns do not experience a dramatic relationship with their parent,
Mm,
their mum. I'm just going to refer to the parent as mum, as you said, and that drama could be very still for them in utero,
mhm.
or it could be very, very dramatic.
Too much. Yeah.
Too much. So we're already getting a sense of how that baby may well experience themselves and their body in relation to themselves and to another,
Mm,
even whilst in utero.
mm, mm. Which is why a core part of our intake and our preparation for working with children, that stage is highly important for us to start conceptualizing what might be happening in front of us.
Yes, and
Mm,
why we might be curious in our intake meetings,
mm.
and perhaps to be thinking about those questions we do or don't ask
Yeah.
in the parental interviews.